After the Socialist Party of America disbanded, the many party caucuses split off into different groups focusing on different goals. We'll be focusing on the Debs caucus, led by two-time presidential candidate Darlington Hoops and Socialist Party activist David McReynolds, who decided to form a new political party called the Socialist Party of the United States of America, or just the Socialist Party USA. Many local and state affiliates of the old Socialist Party decided to join in with the SPUSA. The party elected former mayor of Milwaukee, Frank Zeidler, to be the party's chairman. Zeidler used his prior experience with the Socialist Party of America to reorganizing the party structure during its early years. Eventually, by 1975, the party had gotten 500 members and felt that it was time to nominate a candidate for the presidential election. Zeidler was chosen to be the nominee, and teacher John Quinn Brisbane was nominated to be his running mate. They got on the ballot in 7 states and won 6,038 votes. By the 1980s, the Socialist Party USA had grown to 1,700 members, so while not at the peak of the old Socialist Party, it was getting there. As such, they needed a new Debs or Thomas, to try and reinvigorate the spirit of the Socialist Party. Zeidler and Hoops were too old, so they chose to nominate party founder David McReynolds. Catholic nun, Sister Diane Drufenbrock, was nominated to be his running mate. McReynolds' campaign was notable for the fact that he was the first openly gay presidential candidate in U.S. history. McReynolds also received the nomination of the Liberty Union Party in Vermont. He got on the ballot in 10 states and managed to get 6,898 votes. By the 1984 election, the Socialist Party had resituated itself into the American political scene. Well, not as the Debs level kind of thing, but as a minor left-wing party alongside the likes of the Peace and Freedom Party. But at the Socialist Party convention, they chose to not run their own candidate and instead endorsed the Citizens Party ticket of Sonia Johnson for president and Richard Walton for VP. She also had the nomination of the Peace and Freedom Party and Consumer Party of Pennsylvania. She got 0.08% of the popular vote. In the 1988 presidential election, the biggest left-wing candidacy at the time was Jesse Jackson's campaign for the Democratic nomination. As Jackson was pushing for a big progressive coalition, from gay rights activists to progressive white people to African Americans, he even got the endorsement of independent socialist mayor of Vermont, Bernie Sanders. As such, the Socialist Party was revitalized to push for a more hardline socialist alternative to Jackson. The party nominated journalist Willa Kenoyer for president and credit union officer Ron Ehrenreich as her running mate. They also sought the Liberty Union nomination, beating Internationalist Workers' Party candidate Herbert Lewin 199 to 66. During the general election, they heavily criticized the Democratic nominee Michael Dukakis. They managed to get 3,882 votes. In 1989, the Socialist Party USA elected its first person to political office, that person being Karen Cubby to the Iowa City Council. It's no mayor of Milwaukee, but it's a start. This kind of put the pedal to the metal in regards to bringing the party to a new notoriety. They did so by nominating former VP candidate John Quinn Brisbane to be their nominee, and union organizer Bill Edwards as his running mate. However, Edwards died August of 1992 and was replaced by playwright Barbara Garson via a phone call that can literally be summed up as this: Bill died. Write a press release, please. Also, you want to be VP? Brisbane also participated in the Massachusetts Independence voter primary and debate alongside U.S. Taxpayers Party candidate Howard Phillips and Prohibition Party candidate Earl Dodge. They were on the ballot in 4 states and got 3,057 votes. Later, in the 1996 presidential election, they nominated a presidential ticket comprised of activist Mary Cal Hollis for president and economics professor Eric Chester as her running mate. They also received the nomination of the Liberty Union Party. Hollis was invited to participate in a socialist debate alongside James Harris of the Socialist Workers' Party and Monica Moorhead of the Workers' World Party. Hollis managed to get 4,765 votes. The first major thing to happen to the Socialist Party was that Karen Cubby would retire from her seat in the Iowa City Council. The second major thing that happened to them was that they tried to reclaim their old home of Milwaukee by running Wendell Harris for mayor, who ultimately got 19% of the vote. In regards to the presidential election, two people actively sought the Socialist Party nomination: former VP candidate Eric Chester and former presidential candidate David McReynolds. The nomination ultimately went to McReynolds, and former presidential candidate Mary Cal Hollis was nominated to be his running mate. Like his 1980 run, he also got the endorsement of the Liberty Union Party. They got on the ballot in 7 states and ultimately got 5,602 votes. And while you'd think that this vote total would not seem notable enough to put them on Al Gore's radar, however, it turns out that 2,908 people had accidentally voted for both Al Gore and David McReynolds on the butterfly ballots, and as such had their votes invalidated. It was speculated that a majority of these people who did that wanted to vote for Gore only, and as such McReynolds had unintentionally spoiled the election for him, as well as Ralph Nader, Pat Buchanan, Harry Brown, Howard Phillips, John Hagelin, Monica Moorhead, and James Harris. It was their fault that this good-hearted George W. Bush was elected to president, not the faulty voter ballots or the Supreme Court that said that no recount should be done. For the 2004 presidential election, the Socialist Party had an interesting time choosing their nominee, because quite a few people either actively sought the nomination or were supposedly supposed to seek the nomination. For example, David McReynolds and his campaign team tried to draft Karen Cubby to be their nominee, but she declined to run because her husband at the time, who was an incumbent politician, was seeking to run for re-election, and she didn't want to hurt his campaign efforts. Aside from that, there were 6 people who actively sought the Socialist Party nomination. Former VP candidate Mary Cal Hollis, who dropped out very late in the race; Iowa activist David Domakes, who was originally supporting Hollis, but after she dropped out, he jumped in; activist Jeff Brash, who withdrew from the race 2 weeks before the convention; teacher Lisa Weltman, who was originally seeking the VP slot for Brash, but then they had a falling out, and then she decided to actively seek the nomination against him. Then, well, he dropped out of the race, and she kind of took over his support, and blah, 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 all that. Eric Chester, who was making a comeback from the last election. And lastly, former congressional candidate and Oregon Socialist Party chairman, Walt Brown. While all these candidates were actively seeking the nomination, it was ultimately a campaign of ideas between the more social democratic-minded Walt Brown versus the revolutionary socialism of Eric Chester. In a close convention, Walt Brown barely won the nomination, and Liberty Union Party politician Mary Alice Herbert, who was running to be Chester's running mate, was elected to be the VP candidate. Shortly after the convention, it was discovered that Walt Brown had previously held anti-abortion views, and a group in the party tried to remove Brown from the ballot and replace him with Herbert, which ultimately failed. His campaign was notable in the fact that, as he wasn't a hard-line socialist as previous candidates, he was more willing to work alongside other third-party activists like Darcy Richardson. Brown participated in 2 third-party debates during the election, one with David Cobb, Michael Badnarik, and Michael Perutka, another with Cobb, Charles J. of the Personal Choice Party, and stand-ins for 3 more presidential candidates. Things third parties can get away with because they're a lot more ideologically pure than major party politicians who are usually bought and paid for. Brown managed to get on the ballot in 8 states and ultimately received 10,822 votes. A decent jump in support for the Socialist Party. The previous election's results made the Socialist Party more invigorated than ever to make their party rise up. And I mean, the GOP was calling Obama a socialist anyways, so the Socialist Party beat him to the punch. In regards to candidates, Eric Chester ran for a 3rd consecutive time and was running against 2006 Florida Senate candidate Brian Moore. Moore ended up being nominated by the party, and 2006 California Lieutenant Gubernatorial candidate Stuart Alexander was nominated to be his running mate. Moore also sought the nominations of the Natural Law Party and the Peace and Freedom Party, but lost both of their nominations. However, he was nominated by the Liberty Union Party. Moore used the Socialist Party's Walt Brown push to speak out against the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan in an effort to win anti-war Democrats, as Moore himself was a former Democrat. However, he also used his platform to decry the idea that Obama was a socialist of any kind. Moore made many media appearances, ranging from Al Jazeera to The Colbert Report. Moore managed to get on the ballot in 8 states and overall got 6,582 votes. While this was an unfortunate drop in support for the Socialist Party, and not at all close to the 5% threshold to get federal matching funds, but otherwise they did about the same as they usually get. Now that we are 4 years into the socialist tenure of Barack Obama, the left was angry as the hope and change they were promised was instead neoliberalism with a more appealing wrapping paper. As evident by the fact that leftists were protesting the Obama administration via Occupy Wall Street, or considering running against Obama either in the primary or in the general, this was a prime opportunity for the Socialist Party to jump into this fray. The 2 candidates who sought the Socialist Party's nomination were perennial Liberty Union Party candidate and Socialist Party chairman Jerry Levin and 2008 VP candidate Stuart Alexander. Alexander ultimately won the nomination, and former Marine Alejandro Mendoza was nominated to be his running mate. Alexander also sought the nomination of the Green Party and the Peace and Freedom Party. However, he dropped out of the Green Party primary, and when he lost the PFP nomination, he resigned from the PFP steering committee, citing a lack of support of socialist candidates by the PFP. He did get the Liberty Union Party nomination, however. Alexander, much like Moore, used his platform to bring himself as a stark contrast to Obama, making many media appearances from the likes of new media blogs to John Stossel. He was on the ballot in 13 states and ultimately got 4,434 votes. Meanwhile, they actually elected another party member to public office. Pat Noble was elected to Red Bank Regional High School's Board of Education. I mean, it's not much, but it's a start. The 2016 election was one for the history books, but we all knew that, and I mean, we all probably know the real reasons why. Populist right Trump and populist left Bernie. Bernie being more notable in this area due to the fact that he was openly calling himself a socialist and won a lot of support, and even still a lot of support. Beating Republicans to the punch on that, I mean, if you're going to call him a socialist anyways, might as well own up to it. He was more of a social democrat, so socialists had varied responses to his presidential run. Some, like Socialist Alternative and Kshama Sawant, were 100% supportive of his campaign. Some, like Jill Stein and the Green Party, appreciated his campaign as a red pill to socialism, and they'd lead to more hardline socialism, and like, thanks Bernie, you introduced these guys to socialism, we'll take it from here. While others were fiercely critical of Sanders. The Socialist Party was more in the Jill Stein crowd. As such, the Socialist Party, in an era where democratic socialism was in. There were 2 major candidates who ran for the Socialist Party nomination. Green Party presidential candidate Elijah Manley, who was ineligible to take the office of the president due to his age, and Socialist Party co-chair Edmedio Mimi Soltysik. Soltysik ended up winning the nomination, and labor organizer Angela Walker was nominated to be his running mate. They also received the nomination of the Natural Law Party, which was now only on the ballot in Michigan. You might be saying, wait, where's the Liberty Union Party? Call Gloria LaRiva on that. Their candidacy received the endorsements of Socialist Action, while they simultaneously ran their own candidate, Red Party, a small socialist communist party, and Anarcha-Transfeminism. Wow, a whole political ideology endorse your campaign? That's gotta be a plus. They were officially on the ballot in 2 states and Guam, being the only third-party candidate to do so, and overall managed to get 2,705 votes. Afterwards, we obviously saw the rise of democratic socialism, with the likes of Lee Carter, AOC, and Rashida Tlaib, As such, the Socialist Party would want to capitalize on this for the 2020 election, so in 2019 they decided to hold a convention to decide who their nominee would be. There were two people who actively sought the nomination in 2019. Elijah Manley, making another attempt for this, and Green Party co-founder and presidential candidate Howie Hawkins, in an effort to kickstart an independent left campaign where he would seek the nomination and ballot lines of as many left-wing political parties as possible, like the Peace and Freedom Party, Oregon Progressive Party, Liberty Union Party, Vermont Progressive Party, etc., etc. Former party co-chair Stephanie Cholensky was running to be Elijah's running mate. The nomination inevitably went to Howie Hawkins. Many individuals ranging from Elijah, Stephanie, to other candidates seeking the Green Party nomination have decried him either seeking the nomination altogether or the process he took to get the nomination, but that story's still developing, so we'll see what happens next. And with that, we've reached the most recent developments of the Socialist Party USA. So to all you far-left revolutionary anti-capitalists, I hope you don't gotta try for a third time. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified when a future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website or follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Quora, or check out my articles on the Independent Political Report.